So we've got a new client in the chair and I'm going to talk you guys through step by step on how I would welcome a new client to the salon. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Cole.
I'm Keisha. Nice to meet you.
So guys, it is essential to know your client's name, eye contact and a nice firm handshake. Then you want to start the consultation. The consultation is a verbal contract and agreement that you're happy and the client leaves happy. Remember, they don't have as much education as you do. When you go to see a doctor, they dumb the terms down for us a little bit. So I want you to do the same thing with your clients. Don't talk too technically, it's overwhelming. So when you're talking to your client, talk very visual.
I kind of want to take it a little bit shorter from the top and go for more of like a precise, cleaner bob. And then I think as far as the sides, not too concerned what happens back here, like maybe a nicer, shorter taper.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about your hair at all? Anything else you would like or want?
I'm willing to lose like a couple of inches.
Cut my hair but not too short. We need to know what specifically is too short for that client. Too short for me would be bald. So really dial it in exactly what that's going to be. I start to ask opposite-ended questions, such as, would you like your hair to be flat or would you like volume? Would you like your hair to be very precise and clean or would you like it to be loose, broken, soft and feminine? What would you feel uncomfortable with today, or how would I lose your business if we went past that point? It's a little bit of a bizarre question, but it's essential you need to know it. I don't want you guys to get home later and wonder if you did the right thing or not. When it comes to talking to your clients behind the chair as well, I would strongly recommend not to talk too much. Let the client talk and feel like they've been heard, because sometimes you run into issues if you do all the talking. It's easy for people to connect to you when they're talking to you and you're listening. I'm actually going to start the haircut on the side. The reason for that, and as a personal preference, I always start the haircut in the most prioritised area. I feel if I start through the back, I could get through the front and it's too long or too short. And it would be an issue for the client if it went shorter than discussed. So I'm going to start on the front area where she can clearly see it. That means it's going to control the less prioritised area. I'm actually going to start by dividing the head into two areas. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes when you look at the head as a whole. And where I'm going to split it is the exact point where the side and back separate. So if you just draw a line with your finger from the low point up to the high point, it'll separate perfectly. I'm going to work on the side hair and then that will come into the back area. Starting by going diagonal forward with the sectioning pattern. That means it's slightly higher towards the back and lower towards the front. I'm right-handed when cutting, so on this side my elbow is going to be down and on the opposite side my elbow will be up. This sectioning will tell me to stay symmetrical on both sides, otherwise I'll cut it uneven and obviously we've got an issue then. A diagonal forward not only will help me to keep balance, but it'll also help that hair just to push forwards. So whenever you want swing to feminise it, go on diagonals and the hair will move much more. So I think it's really important to use the right tools for whatever job you're going to be working on. Serums for shine, hairsprays to fix it, thermal protectors, if you've got a male clientele, wax, pomade, whatever you want, you've got a specific product to help you do that job. Scissors are no different. So if I'm going to be working on something short and precise, a shorter scissors are going to help me to do that. You know, around the ears is a small area, behind the ears is a tiny area. The neck and ears is such a compact little zone, it's very hard to get in here with large clips, combs and scissors. When I'm going to be working on longer hair and expanded hair, so dry hair, I always use a longer scissor, and then I always use two types of texturizers in my arsenal. Within those four particular tools, I can literally do any haircut, depending on what is discussed in the consultation, determines what I pick up. Whether it's the short scissor for detailed work, the longer scissor for longer hair, dry cutting, slide cutting, that type of stuff. A blending and weight removal tool, which is the teeth are very close together. If the teeth are close together, the hair stays close together when styling, so it's not going to give a lot of styling benefits. It's just going to help to blend and remove weight. And then a wider set texturizer. The teeth are further apart, so the styling properties of the hair become more open and more apart. Each one of these do something completely different, so it's essential to make sure you have them. So starting on a diagonal forward sectioning pattern, the reason I'm doing that is so the hair that I'm not working on stays flush to the head. If I start to lift upwards, the inside becomes shorter and the outside gets longer, so it's going to get really loose and broken, which is earlier in the consultation what she said she didn't want. So combing down in my fingers, I'm actually going to be cutting through my fingers, so I'm just giving myself a very even platform for working on. So down to 0 to preserve weight on the inside and remove length on the outside. Following the sectioning with my fingers, I'm actually going to tap over the top of the ear, and that's going to protect from getting a gap over it. You've got to remember, guys, that the ear is going to cause us issues. The hair has to travel further over the ear to get to this. There's no obstruction here, but there is. So tapping it almost extends that area of length. Next section, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm actually using the wide side of my comb. The specific reason I'm using the wider side of my comb is to apply less stress and tension on the hair. My wife taught me how to wrap presents at home, and if you score along a ribbon with a scissor, it's going to spring back. So the wide side of your comb is the equivalent of just leaving the ribbon there. It's just going to sit there. Pull very tight with the narrow side. That's the equivalent of scoring along with a ribbon. It's going to spring. It's going to become more alive. Well, because we want much more of a structured form to the haircut, don't pull very tight. Relax, and you'll strengthen up on your work. I think it's essential, guys, as well, whilst you're working on your client, keep checking in with them. Ask them, how is it looking? How are they feeling? Do they want anything changing? You know, are they okay for beverages? All that type of thing. Remember that it's a person here. So down, zero, right onto the skin, very relaxed, working it in. You can see with that small blade, I'm only cutting a small amount of hair with the actual scissors here, so it would be pointless for me to have an extremely large scissor at this stage. Change the length, and it's cleaner, it's sharper. I'm going to actually repeat the same process on the other side, and then I'm going to add the back. Diagonal back section following the hairline to separate front and back. Diagonal forward sections to 0 degrees. To check balance on this, you can either pray that it's going to be even, or you can measure it. So right at the bottom of the earlobe is exactly where I'm going to cut this. I can't expose the earlobe on one side or the other because it will look uneven. So make sure that you either cover the earlobes, or if you do expose, then you will need to measure the actual length. I'm actually using the Hattori Hanzo H86. This is in a 5.5. Again, the shorter blade is amazing for getting into these little delicate, hard to reach areas. It's such a delicate area because of obviously the skin, so just be careful around these areas. Your smaller scissors will really help you to get in there. The best way to check balance is just to place the comb on the length and then come across. This is something that I've only recently started doing, and it changes everything for you. Just right at the front, the smallest amount, I can take a little bit more length off here. Measuring things gives you that security that when your client leaves, you know it's amazing. So now both sides complete. Again, the reason you're pulling down is when you pull down on the hair, it collapses and becomes heavier, more precise. But we don't want lift and movement so much here to start. We want strength. I'm going to take this guide from the front into the back. So section from the side area. I'll see straight away where my guide is. I'm going to join the guide from here, and I'm going to cut slightly shorter to the centre back area. If I go a little bit shorter through the centre back, it's going to have this reaction. And remembering the consultation, that's exactly what she asked for. Strength and volume. The difference between the back and the sides is we want to start to create a little bit more volume. In order to create volume in the haircut, it comes from lift. So if I'm 0, flat. If I lift to here, this is where my volume will be. Higher, and so on and so on and so on. So I'm actually going to lift the back and graduate it to create more volume. And just keep stepping into this back area. And as soon as I lift this, you'll see straight away the reaction now. And if I keep lifting, it will continuously get higher, 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 higher. And next section, do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to lift higher. So when your section's low, if you just put your comb on it with a higher section on the round of the head and just push your comb, so it jumps up higher. So that's how high I'm going to lift. And then the next area, higher. Okay? So higher to continue to get more volume, because I know, again from the consultation, what will make or break this appointment is lack of volume. So I'm just going to continue all the way to the crown and then do exactly the same thing. Double check how high I'm lifting. Always scoop up into your fingers when you're lifting. So lift up, teeth on the head, and then elevate from there. That keeps it really controlled. Combing down, we just get a seamless transition from front into back. And then as soon as we just run our hands through it, this is the reaction that it'll have when it'll dry. Dry hair becomes much more expanded and more alive. So I'm just encouraging that dry, and it's just going to start to just do that. I think the interesting thing that we need to remember about products, if I need products in order to make my clients look phenomenal, the client has absolutely no hope at home without that particular product. And remember that. If you need those products with all of your experience and ability, it is essential that your clients have the same products available to you. So second side of the back, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but now I've already got the guide put in. I'm just gently shuffling around as I'm working, so my body's directly in front of where I'm working. If I'm directly in front of it, it allows me just to pull it straight out. So say if I stood here all of the time, I'd naturally pull this back so it'd get longer. So if you do want to preserve length, pull it further away from where it lives. If you want consistency and to remove more of an even amount, make sure you're moving around your haircut. So again, the more you move, the more you're going to cut. So there we have the finished look whilst the hair's wet. I'm actually going to dry this through now and then soften and slightly add some texture around the crown area. We do change parting. She wants the ability to run her hands through it, where we might not always wear it just perfect. And remember that if your client wants just to wear it perfect all the time, the wind's still going to blow and stuff like that. So I would recommend around the crown to soften just to blend. Beautiful. Okay, so I've just blow dried the hair. Whenever you're working with bleached hair or lightened hair, it's really important to replace the moisture that's been lifted from the colour. Whenever you're lifting colour out of hair like this, if it's bleach or again high lift, you take out pigment but you also take out moisture. So I just applied a serum over this, and to be honest, you can get away with a little bit more than you would think. So to get that surface shine, heat from the dryer, polish it with the brush. Conditioning sprays and serums is amazing for it. As you can see, we can change the parting on this. That's why a left parting, right parting, you'll see that in a second. So I'm going to texturise the crown a little bit, but just slightly toughen up and strengthen the perimeter and check the lines. I've actually swapped out for a longer version of the scissor. Exactly the same scissor, but a longer version. So this is the HH6 in a 6-inch. I like to cover a larger area very, very quick. I'd prefer to just slide in the longer blade and close. So comb down, really, really loose tension again. So again, slide in the longer blade, close. So I don't really want to be nibbling along this. And then same thing over here, head over to the side, comb down, slide in the scissor and cut. I'm actually sliding this in with the blade still open and then only closing once I'm stabilised and ready. Obviously you've got to be careful around the earlobe. Slide in, stabilise, cut. But it's minimal. Usually refining bobs or strong haircuts when it's been blow dried takes a long time. But because I use the wide side of the comb, it stopped the hair reacting as much. I'm actually going to start to soften all of this strength up. As you can see, as I turn the head, when I start to lift the hair up, we want much more of this expansion. I'm actually going to work with now the 13T, which is more of a wider set texturizing tool, is because the crown's very unpredictable. By going in with this, half of the haircut will go a little bit shorter, half of it will stay longer. And the short bits will support the long bits and give me much more of a stack and more of an expansion. We're always taught when using a texturizer to just go straight across. You'll get the maximum usage of this tool if you go straight across. If you go vertical, you'll get the minimum usage. So I'm actually going to start short. I'm going to start vertical to do the least amount of texturizing, because I want to soften out this line. Diagonal back section for movement. Shorter, I'm going to do less. Get longer and turn. Longer and turn. It's just going to break that line. So again, the beauty of this particular tool and why I use this over any other at this stage is the ability to close and slide and glide through the haircut. If the teeth are square here, it's impossible to glide like that. The only way it's moving through is because the corners have been shaved and taken down. So it's rounded at the base. So when you're coming in and closing, close, slide. You can see it straight away, which soften this out. But as soon as I get my hands in it, soft and more expansion. And then the same thing across the center. And I'll repeat the process on the second side. Ignoring the sides where we want to keep that strong, and crisscross from the side into that back area where I've already been working on it. If I'm doing this on long hair, I just start the process further away. So it's a really, really, really versatile technique. And then just on the crown, a slight amount of pointing. Don't be afraid of tools like this. There was a time in my career that I would never have used a tool like this, but being open to learning and progressing, over the past 6 months, adding this tool to what I do has absolutely changed my business. You can see straight away the reaction. It's just softened it out around the crown. Where the strength through here works, but through here not so much. So I get this combination of strength through the front and then volume and texture around the crown and the back area. And that's the look.